Hello and welcome to today's episode of pianoTV. I am Allysia, your host, and in conjunction with the previous video on the 4 pillars of piano technique, which you should definitely check out. It's not my original idea. It's more just like my digestion of someone else's idea. I wanted to talk about technique again. One thing I've noticed, I just started teaching a group of about 40 adult students. And one thing that really struck me in the first week when I was just starting to get to know everyone, looking at what books they had and things like that, pretty much everyone had a Hanon book. Hanon is like, it must be, I don't usually teach Hanon in my studio, so I forget that it's kind of like the gold standard for pretty much everyone who's playing piano. It's one of those like must-have essentials, apparently, based on my sample size of 40. So I wanted to talk about Hanon today, particularly how to play Hanon with the correct technique. Hanon, well, you know what? We're gonna get into it. It's gonna be like a whole chat. I'm gonna sit down on the piano. I'm gonna like actually show you how I would play the Hanon exercises and so on. So let's just get to it. I think I'm gonna need my coffee for this one. No, I'm not about to trash talk Hanon, don't worry. Usually, so one of the first videos I ever recorded on this channel, it would have been like 4 years ago now, was a video about Hanon versus Czerny. And in general, I tend to favor Czerny in terms of finger exercises and stuff like that. Czerny has like a million exercises, but a lot of what he writes are not just like strictly finger exercises, though he does have some of those. A lot of what he writes are what we call etudes, which are studies. So they're pieces that are designed to improve your technique at the piano, but they're pieces, they're musical. They sound like music when you play them. And that's the main reason that I tend to favor Czerny over Hanon. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen that video, that's my conclusion. However, since people really like Hanon, and since you're probably already practicing Hanon, I wanted to throw out a few tips to you. So the first thing I want to say, set my coffee down, we're getting serious. I don't even think I took a sip of it, did I? First things first, don't spend too long doing Hanon exercises on any given day. I don't love when people play Hanon for like 30 minutes. And like say they practice for an hour. I don't love when they spend like half their practice session on Hanon, because you're not making music. You're simply moving your fingers. And learning how to play the piano is moving your fingers, of course, but it's also making music. And I would rather the emphasis on a practice session be on making music than just kind of like arbitrarily moving your fingers. You'll be moving your fingers when you play pieces too. The other thing with Hanon is the kind of the traditional way that Hanon exercises are meant to be played are to move your fingers just kind of like pistons. So your kind of hand remains stable, and then you're using it purely as a finger exercise to get them more coordinated, which seems like a great idea. Because when most people sit down and start learning how to play the piano, they realize how uncoordinated their fingers really are. So of course they turn to something like Hanon, because it allows you to do little exercises that make your fingers work better. That's a good idea in theory. The problem with that in practice is when we play piano, when we make music, we're not just using our fingers, or at least we shouldn't be. It's not going to sound very good if we use just our fingers. For the most part, like when we play piano, we're using our arms, we're using our wrists. What happens is if you use your fingers in just kind of like a lever sort of pressing motion when you're doing Hanon exercises, is it creates a lot of tension in your hand. But when you're pressing your fingers like this, you can even try this right now. When you press your fingers one by one, you can kind of feel the tension here, which is fine in small bursts. It's not going to kill you, but it could create problems in the long run. When we actually play piano, we use a lot of our arm weight, and our wrists stay flexible and loose. And what that means is instead of just, like say we're playing a scale, and I'll show you this on the piano in just a moment, but instead of like playing a scale where you're just pressing one finger and not moving your arm at all, once you start moving your wrist and allowing some arm weight to sink into the notes, it's almost like your arm is playing the notes more than your fingers. The fingers move, of course, but you'll feel the difference. We'll try it out on the piano and I'll show you. You'll be able to feel the difference. So my biggest, if you stop this video right now and you're like, I only have 5 minutes, I'm done. Play Hanon with loose flexible wrists with the same kind of technique that we talked about in the 4 pillars of piano technique video previously. Again, definitely check that one out because it's kind of, this video rests on the foundation of that one. So without further ado, I'm gonna hop to the piano. I'm gonna actually like show you how to play Hanon exercises in a way that's not gonna create a lot of tension in your body, and in a way that's gonna relate to how you're gonna be playing other pieces on the piano. Because again, you're not just using your fingers when you learn a piece of music. So we wanna practice Hanon the way we would practice any other piece of music with our whole body. All right, let's do it. Okay, so I wanted to show you the scale thing that I was talking about because I was like trying to airplay a scale. Basically, you wouldn't play a scale with your hand completely straight. Your wrist kind of, most people do this without thinking about it. Your wrist kind of just naturally does a bit of swinging when you play a scale. And we want to take that same idea, or like when we're playing a piece of music, like our wrists and our arms are just going to be moving around a little bit. So I'm going to show you how I would do Hanon for the first 3 exercises just to get you going. So the first exercise, there we go. So that's your pattern, and then you keep doing the pattern like over and over again up the piano, and then you do it down the piano too. So the kind of typical way of learning Hanon would be to keep your wrists kind of locked and just using your fingers like this. And it feels like it could be a beneficial thing to do that. Like when I'm doing that, I can like feel my fingers working. So you might feel your fingers working and think like, ah, yes, this is a good, healthy, wonderful exercise. And it can be. But instead of locking our wrists, I think you'll find more success if you just allow your arm to press some of the notes. So if our notes are going up and down, and then we move our thumb, instead of anchoring in one spot, swing your wrist this way when the notes go up, and swing the wrist that way when the notes go down. These little swings, when I do this, I'm moving my arm. I'm not moving my thumb at all. This is just like my wrist bouncing up and down, and then my thumb ends up pressing a key. So by using wrist rotation, we're using the benefit of the weight of our arm to fall into the keys, so not all of the energy is coming from our finger. So showing you this with wrist rotation, and so on, just like a really nice little swaying motion. That'll take some of the pressure off of your tendons and make it much more comfortable to play. Now the second exercise is you're going to be doing the exact same thing. The only difference now is you're also like you're kind of like you're zigzagging. So you're going up and down. So I almost think of these little zigzags as like you're doing kind of little semicircles with your wrist. So you're kind of swinging up, then a little semicircle. Kind of like hopefully you can see my hands good when I do this. Again, we're allowing our wrists to be loose and flexible, and we're not just using our fingers as we play this. And this is how you'll be able to, not that you would want to play Hanon for hours, but you could if you kept a lot of the weights transferring into your fingers from your arm. And then the third exercise is kind of just like the same thing, but inverted. And so on, and so on. And it climbs, and then the left hand. I'll show you as well. Oh, I hope I was playing it right in the right hand. Good. Oh, that's why. That's finger 3. You can tell I don't play these very often, but just keep paying attention to your body when you're playing. If your wrists feel like they're tensing and you're keeping your hands totally facing forward the whole time with no movement, just remind yourself to relax, loosen up, and find that movement. It'll still help your fingers become more coordinated. You don't need to practice your fingers in isolation to get coordination. It's kind of like, no, actually, I don't think I can have a good fitness comparison in this case because I don't do a lot of things like lifting weights. So we'll leave the random comparisons out of this for now. But yeah, that's how I want you to practice Hanon. Keep your wrists loose. Refer back to the 4 pillars of piano video if you want more details on that. And a final note on Hanon too is, I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but if you must practice Hanon, then please don't practice it for too long. Just because, like, if you listen to this, it's not really musical. It's just like, I don't know, kind of like an endless pattern of notes that just sounds not that good. I mean, it doesn't sound like tuneful. Whereas I don't have any turning exercises in front of me, but if you're playing with something, I don't know, if you're playing like a pattern that uses like chords and harmony and or it has some kind of like tune, it's gonna help develop your ear. It's gonna it's good to practice music when we're playing piano, I think. I think a lot of learning how to play the piano comes from honing our ear and our ability to like hear patterns, but also hear harmonies and natural sounds and tunes. So like hearing that a C to a G7 is like a pretty like natural sound. Things like that are important to just kind of like burn into our mental ear. I don't know how to say it. Like, I want to say burn into your brain, but I guess maybe that is what I mean. Burn into your brain in like an auditory sort of way. Anyway, I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but that is it. Those are my Hanon tips for you guys who are practicing Hanon. Thank you for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Enjoy your Hanon if you must. Make sure you're playing it correctly and not too much, and I will be very, very happy. And so will you, and so will your body. So yes, that felt like bad grammar when I said it. Anyway, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye guys.